Greetings. I'm going to again take advantage of the fact that it is the Halloween time of year. And, due to quarantine being as quarantine is and all of that, Halloween's going to be different this year. So I want to talk about horror movie icons. And, when I was a kid, I remember watching old, like, Dracula and Frankenstein movies and all that. They're fine, I guess. I didn't see what the big deal was with some of them, though, to be honest, some of the older ones. So I would understand that for kids watching this who are too young to remember the original Halloween coming out, the original Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street, I want to go through this. And, of course, for this one, I'm wearing my Haddonfield Slashers jersey, which is, of course, the Michael Myers, 78, the year the movie came out. So I just want to focus on Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees, and Freddy Krueger. The reason being that Pinhead, to me, is not in the same vein. Pinhead, if you don't open the puzzle box, you're probably okay. If you open the puzzle box, well, you opened it probably for a reason. And yeah, so Pinhead, and in Hellraiser 2, of course, Pinhead kind of has a change of heart, and then he doesn't back, the third party's back to being Pinhead. I never understood exactly what happened there, but anyways, I guess they went, wow, we got rid of our icon. Well, we'll just put him back. Are we going to explain it? No, that's for you to do. I'm not explaining it. I'm not explaining it either. The Tall Man. The Phantasm movies, Tall Man is not a serial killer. Tall Man is more into the whole genocidal part of things. And the Tall Man and the Phantasm movies are this bewildering, baffling, sort of fun movie series at the same time. If you can have fun watching horror movies that are really bereft of laughter and jokes. And they're very... Well, it's a dark series, but I don't put the Tall Man in the same category. Because I used to every now and then see, fanfic of Tall Man versus Freddy, or Tall Man wouldn't care. Just do whatever you want. And Leatherface, I'm not putting in the conversation either. I've never been a big Texas Chainsaw Massacre fan, and I know that's going to sound like sacrilege to some, but I'm not. I remember when I watched the original from way back when, and my friend and I just got bored watching it. Because what was weird was it got built up in our heads as being this absolutely amazing, scary movie. My dad had told me how scary it was. And his parents had told him how scary it was. And we were like, okay, our parents agree this movie is really scary. Let's watch this. And so we watched it. I'm like, I'm bored. I'm bored. Well, they didn't show anything there. There's nothing there either. And now, and I understand people say, well, if it's off screen, your mind tells you. And we were teenagers. We were like, well, if it's not on the screen, it didn't happen. And whatever. So, Leatherface to me has never been quite on that level. Now, recently they had a Texas Chainsaw Massacre sequel that came out starring Alexandra Daddario. And honestly, that one was okay. That movie was actually kind of good, and it had some nice twists and turns along the way that I thought were different. So, that one I enjoyed, but not enough to put Leatherface in here with these guys. So, to me, it comes down to three guys. Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees, and Freddy Krueger. So let's discuss first off Michael Myers. Yeah, I'm going to use Funko Pops for this because I have a bunch of Funko Pops. Michael Myers, known as the Shape in the original movie. That's what he's credited as. He, as a child, just decided, all right, time to snap. Now, there's the Rob Zombie reboot, which basically gives you an example of why Michael Myers would snap, that his entire family was made up of pricks. And for some reason, even though they're in Illinois, they all sounded like they lived in the Deep South. So Rob Zombie's take on Illinois was unique, to say the least. Michael Myers, to me, I don't see him as being a tragic hero on any level. I don't see him as any of that. And that's what I'm going to try to get into here, is which one's my favorite and why. For people who followed my channels for a long time, you may have a good idea of who's going to be my favorite in this, but we'll get into why as well. Michael Myers simply has this need to off people. And it's what he's good at, it's what he does, and depending on which movies you still consider canon, he really enjoys killing his family, or Laurie Strode isn't his family at all. Whatever canon you follow, I thought the idea that Laurie would be his sister, I thought that was interesting. That he had another sister and Laurie was the sister. Of course, that's the original Halloween 2, which now is no longer canon. But and of course, then that led to his niece in Halloween 4 and Halloween 5. And then to really disturbing, disgusting lengths in Part 6. The less said about Halloween 6, the better. But to me, the Halloween movies, while I like part one, I liked the sequel, which was also called Halloween a couple years ago, because why keep things simple? I did enjoy Halloween 2 when it came out way back in the day. The Rob Zombie version, I thought added to it. I thought there was some interesting stuff. I thought what hurt the Rob Zombie version of the Halloween movie was that the last 20 minutes had to be almost shot for shot the same as what the original movie was. I thought the fact that he had to end up where the original movie ended up, I thought that hurt it. I thought if he just had a prequel to the whole thing, I think he would have had a better movie. So, yeah, Michael Myers to me, I would rate him probably third favorite out of the three. And if these guys were all having a fight with one another, I would think Michael Myers would probably finish third in that fight. But it's a fight that if you're going to have it, I also want to show you guys I do have a Pinhead Funko as well. Because I don't mind the Hellraiser movies, and I thought the Pinhead Funko looked pretty cool. So I'm like, yeah, I'll get the Pinhead one. Because that works. Then I got to go through here. All right, here we go. So if it's in a dreamscape, I think Freddy would kill Michael. Now, of course, we get into the whole fact that none of these guys seem to have any weakness to bullets, logic, physics, science. But Freddy Krueger, for me, I've enjoyed his movies, depending on which ones they are. The original, of course. Part 3, yes. Part 4, absolutely. Part 5, Part 6, better off to stare straight into the sun. Freddy vs. Jason was excellent. And then the reboot is better off not being watched. Now, Freddy Krueger, Robert Englund, of course, will forever be known as Freddy Krueger. And there's a reason for that. And there's a reason why Nightmare on Elm Street, Freddy Krueger, and this is the one Funko. Now, they should have made a Funko for Nancy. I've never seen a Nancy one, but they should if they haven't. And some of the survivors from the movies, I think that'd be kind of fun to see in Funkos, but I haven't seen that yet. But Freddy Krueger, this was one of those ones I kind of went back and forth on. Then I decided, yeah, I'd better get it because Jason. Now, Freddy is not a redeemable character because he killed kids. And then he's murdered by parents, and then he decides to, through their nightmares, he's going to kill their kids in revenge for them killing him. And he's really, the thing is, too, in the original movies, he's repugnant. He's a horrible person. He's a child murderer. And then when they rebooted it, they thought, what if he did things to the kids, too, that just put him way over the top on the creepy level? And that's kind of where it loses me in the reboot. But Freddy Krueger, is as entertaining as some of his one-liners are, he would still be my second favorite of the three. And I think in a legit squaring off in the dream realm, Michael doesn't have a chance. Now, the odd part is Michael might be the smartest of the three, even though he's the shape. There's nothing to think that he couldn't be the smartest. He's learned how to drive, again, depending on which movies you think are canon. He's learned how to drive. He's clearly intelligent. He thinks things through. He's got a plan. His plan isn't very complicated, but comparatively speaking, he seems to be the smartest. Now, Freddy is creative in the dream world, but we don't know what Michael and Jason can do in the dream world because we haven't seen them there other than Freddy versus Jason. Now, this makes it pretty obvious who my favorite of the three is, but we'll get into why. So first off, we've got Jason with the sack here, and this was exclusive to Walgreens. And this one here, this is not a cheap one. This one's hard to find too. This Jason Voorhees is underrated when he was kind of the hillbilly Jason. And this is from part 2. This is before Machete Jason too. I don't think he has a machete kill in that movie. Now, the difference is this. So Michael snaps and goes after his family, and then he's just ready to kill anybody and anything that gets in his way after that because he's gone off the deep end. Freddy, he's a child murderer. He's a horrible person. He is, all those things. Jason was initially drowned in Crystal Lake. He drowned in Crystal Lake because counselors weren't paying attention, and he wandered off. Nobody paid attention. He didn't know how to swim, and so he drowns. And so, because counselors were off fooling around when they were supposed to be doing their job, his mother loses her mind, as parents will do when something bad happens to their child. And she tries to exact her revenge when they try to reopen the camp. If they hadn't tried to reopen the camp, nothing happens. It's when they tried to reopen the camp that Pamela Voorhees says no. Then after she dies, and Jason having witnessed it, depending on what storyline you follow, Jason decides he's gonna continue his mother's work. And of course, in part 2, they have a really, really awesome scene at the end, where the survivor of that movie has put on the mother's sweater, and she's talking to him like the mother, and Jason sees his mother. Jason's not the most intelligent of the killers. If we were having an IQ test, if they could stop stabbing each other with the pencils long enough to actually take the test, of the 3, Jason would end up finishing at the bottom. But Jason in the movies has some fascinating characteristics that I think are incidental and accidental. I don't think there's any kind of grand plan when they make a Friday the 13th movie, but having watched all of them, there's quirks. There's the fact that he walks slow, sometimes he walks fast, and sometimes he can be seen jogging. Depends on his mood. There are times where he will stage bodies all over the place so that the final survivor can see all the bodies. It's like he wants to show his work. He wants to taunt the person, which calls into question how smart he is or he isn't, that he's thinking ahead. So he's had 8 counselors, and those 8 counselors are now all in the great beyond. And he decides, you know, it'd be fun. So, okay, is she come back yet? She's not back yet. All right. I'm going to stage these bodies all over the place. This is going to be such a gas. She's going to come in. She's going to open the fridge. There's going to be a head in it. She's going to go into the closet. There's going to be a body in there. Then she's going to open the door, and surprise, I've nailed somebody up into the frame of that door. There's definitely a side of Jason that they don't show in these movies that I wish they did. I think if the staging part of it was there, and you don't have to have him laughing while he's setting it up. You don't have to have him mumbling under his breath, this is going to be great. I can't wait till she sees this. But now we kind of want it, don't we? And that's not something that we see as much with Michael. I mean, he does stage things, but Michael's intelligent and stages things, and Jason's not supposed to be that intelligent, and yet he stages things. Now, when you're collecting Funkos, this one is not actually Jason Voorhees. It looks like Jason, but notice the mask has the blue stripes on it. This is Roy. This is Friday the 13th, Part 5, where Jason's not there. This is Roy. This is Roy's mask. Doesn't say it anywhere on here, but I have a funny feeling that if I took the mask off of this thing, it'd say Roy right on the forehead. I don't think you can. I'm pretty sure it's all one piece. Just saying, this is the Roy Jason Voorhees. So if you see this anywhere, this was a Hot Topic limited edition exclusive because it's Roy. So they don't make very many of them because it's not Jason, it's Roy. But I had to get it because I was like, okay, that's not Jason, it's Roy. So technically it's an error, but not that anybody cares. Because people would still watch Friday the 13th Part 5 and they'd say, that's a good Jason movie. And then you have to correct them and say, actually, Jason isn't in it. Jason's in flashbacks. Jason's in Tommy's mind. Jason Voorhees himself isn't actually in the movie. The interesting thing is when you see Jason in the mirror or you see Jason that Tommy sees, it's the right mask. The movie's telling you, flat out telling you, the guy running around killing teenagers right now is not Jason. And yet, you don't realize it until that second viewing. You're like, oh yeah, they were telling me it's not Jason. If you haven't seen it, act surprised. Which brings me to this. The proper Jason mask, the iconic Jason mask. The proper Jason as well, where one eye is half shut because he doesn't have an eye. From where he got the machete through it, that'll tend to hurt your eye. Do not put a machete in your eye; it'll cause eye damage. Jason Voorhees to me is the tragic character, picked on as a kid, according to Freddy vs. Jason. At the time that he dies, he is at a campground where either the kids were picking on him or not, depending on what you think is canon. And he's in pain. And having read the Friday the 13th Part 6 book, which I mentioned yesterday in the video where I was talking about Friday the 13th Part 6, the only thing that stops his pain is violence. And physical violence on others is the only thing that causes him to see a diminishment of his pain. I honestly think of the three, if you have just brute force, he's stronger than Michael. No doubt in my mind that if it's arm wrestling, Jason wins. If it's who can take the most bullets, Jason wins. Now, there are some caveats to that. You have Jason before he's a zombie in part 6 and Jason after he's a zombie in part 6. After part 6, he's basically unkillable. And I'm not saying that he was killable in the first 4 movies, but he dies at the end of 4. And we know he's dead because it's years later that Tommy brings him back to life because he's a moron. But I discussed that yesterday. Jason, to me, wins the physical battle. Not only that, but if we had ever seen Michael versus Jason versus Freddy, which we never will, so that's why I could do a video on this and just, hey, here's who my favorite is. Jason, to me, is the character that you end up rooting for. And in Freddy versus Jason, the director, the writers, they understood this. They understood Jason is the more sympathetic character. You can't generate sympathy for Freddy Krueger. You just can't. You can generate laughs. You can generate people cheering for Freddy because that's what we do during horror movies. But actually, flat out cheering between the two, fans are going to cheer for Jason. For whatever reason, Jason Voorhees is to this day the most beloved of the three, if that's a thing. And you know what's really interesting is, I would argue that outside of Freddy versus Jason, there hasn't been a great movie with Jason Voorhees in it. And Freddy versus Jason is not a Friday the 13th movie. I still believe there's a really good Friday the 13th movie that can be made. The problem is the people who've been making them, the original was being made for a quick buck. It was Halloween has made how much money? And it was made for how much? Okay, so with that budget, we could make a ton of money. Why don't we make a movie like that? We'll make this killer that's sort of like Michael, but not quite. And of course, you know, originally Jason wasn't in it. It was his mother. He didn't have a mask until part 3. But without Michael Myers, you don't have Jason Voorhees. So I think there's a good movie to be made, but the people in general that have been making them have been worried more about the kill count and worried more about the gore effects until the MPA takes them out, because you're not allowed to have that if you're Friday the 13th for whatever reason. And I think there's a really good movie there. I've talked about this in previous videos. I do. I think you can make a great Friday the 13th movie that has, I don't know, characters and development of people and stuff, but I don't know that it ever happens. I've talked about my willingness to make that movie, and yet, here we are. I don't think it'll never happen, but I absolutely would. I remember when I was growing up, and we were watching Friday the 13th movies, talking to my friends and saying, you know, we could go to Cultus Lake. We could film a Friday the 13th movie at Cultus Lake. And you're like, yep, you could totally do that. You have all the woods around it. You have, you know, a great lake that's right there. And during the off season, the lake is virtually deserted. So it is beautiful. It's picturesque. And you'd have all kinds of locations you could use. And you could make a great movie. But, you know, my frustration, I think, with Friday the 13th is that you watch these movies and you go, the movie was kind of, that was predictable. And there is a great character with Jason that I think they accidentally created. Because again, I don't think the intention was to create this character that you can feel sympathy for, especially since they never speak until Jason goes to hell. And then I think that's accidental by the scriptwriter. I don't think they realized what they were writing. Because again, there hasn't been a great Friday the 13th movie. But at this time of year, they get watched. I can't say I don't recommend them unless they're Jason Takes Manhattan, which there's a good reason that almost all Friday the 13th fans hate Jason Takes Manhattan. But you kind of have to watch it at least once, and at some point I will get my wife to watch it, as I got her to watch part 6, which was funny. I think my favorite moment in part 6 is that Tommy has the gasoline in the boat, and he sort of dribbles it on one side and he sort of dribbles it on the other, and then he throws a match, and it creates a perfect ring of fire around the boat. Just, you can't, again, you stumble into genius is the best way that I could put it. These Friday the 13th movies, they stumble into something great. And you can just tell the actor playing Tommy's like, all right, I'll just dribble this over here, I'll dribble this over here, and then I guess I have to throw the match, right? And then it's a ring of fire, which didn't make any sense. None of that made any sense. That whole setup, it just, again, proved that Tommy was an idiot that didn't really have a plan. And then my wife was wondering, too, during that. She's like, why doesn't Megan get the kids out of there? And I'm like, because the kids want to watch a fight between, you know, Jason Voorhees and Tommy. You can't deny the kids that. What could possibly happen to the children? She made a good point. Anyways, there you go. So let me know your favorite of the big three. I'll call it the big three. And if you want Leatherface to be in that as well, I totally understand. Just for me, he's not in that. But if you think Leatherface would destroy all of them, I would answer with Leatherface doesn't take bullets the way that that Jason and Michael does. And he can't exist in the dream realm like Freddy. So I don't think Leatherface would last very long. But let me know your thoughts. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I'll talk to you again soon.